You, sh
Perfect.
you should get a little okay on your screen.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about snafus, but we're here, and Father Pete's with us. Thanks so much. By way of introduction, I hope people took a look at the KBI Kino Border Initiative website. Father Pete's official title, Mission Engagement Officer. What that means, at least what I saw when we had our immersion at KBI a couple of years ago, is that on the state side, Father is the sort of ambassador of goodwill, and we went one Sunday to a border community, not Nogales, a little farther north, and where Father said a mass, and there was a community dinner afterwards. There were ranchers there, as well as others from the community, including one of the New York Times favorite go-to ranchers when they want to update their story on the border. And with that, Alexander may have a few words as well by way of introduction, then we'll go right to Father.
I think just to situate this in current context, I had and Jack also, the wonderful opportunity to talk with Father for over an hour, I think, in 2022. This happened immediately following the most recent visit at KBI. Group of 6 amigos went through their experience. 6 days, was it, Jack?
Yes.
Yeah. Up close and personal, seeing the work and both sides of the border, but most of it in Nogales in Sonora in Mexico. And we were keen to learn more about the past history and also how he in particular became involved. And the interview is actually stored on our website. We have sent out the link. And if you haven't yet, there's also a transcription for those who prefer reading, give you a sense of what's going on here. Father's past several lives, and he's done a lot of things. Mountaineering is one of them that we learned about. I think
too long ago.
Too long ago. I think that if I were just to briefly situate this, we just lost a great world leader. And I think for many of us, he personified kindness and humility. And so I wonder how those virtues will survive as we move forward. And I have a sense that they are present in the community in Nogales. I'm interested to see how that will move forward. And we're recording this, Kevin, in case you.
And yeah, welcome, Kevin. Well, we'll go right to you, Father, for whatever opening remarks you'd like to make, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just I just got an email here.
Well, you have it.
Yeah. They are interviewing me right now on this Zoom call, if you can get in.
Do you want to?
No, I just. So I'm hoping he's having trouble getting in with that number and the Zoom number. So he just said, "What are you sending me?" And I said, "Well, if you want to participate in a Zoom call, that would be great." But these are former volunteers. So he also was a volunteer here before he went down to Mexico. But
okay, I'm going to send you some instructions that will get around the problem of the bad link You start Zoom, you select join, and then you just type in the meeting. And I can send that to you in email as well.
Oh, okay.
I sent it via the chat.
Oh, yeah, no, but
Yeah.
send it in the email, then I can
Yeah.
just
Okay.
forward it to him. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so anyway, I don't know whether he can, get into, he's in Mexico, he's up in the mountains in Puebla, and I don't know, he's always had spotty internet, service down there. So
Okay. Off it's gone. So
okay.
so here we have someone else. Yeah. So Wendy Scherer, who was also our Peace Corps um, colleague, has written in and has the same problem. So I'm just sending her another email instruction. I'm sorry. This is
Yep.
not what we envisioned. Yeah. Is this Javier?
Yeah. Did he
Okay.
get through?
He did. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, he's really tech savvy. I mean, he does all kinds of stuff, and I can't figure out what he's doing. So,
Uh-huh.
but it'd be interesting in just hearing what Peace Corps is doing right now with the water emission. If we get a little time at the end.
Uh-huh.
And he's also, because he was a long-term volunteer here. He did a semester after graduation before he started Peace Corps
Right.
with us here. So he's bilingual, obviously.
Yeah.
And
And here comes Harvey Kaplan, who's a recently retired immigration lawyer from Boston. He has spent some time in Tijuana in a similar immersion experience to that offered by KBI, and has a lifelong history of fighting on the right side, I guess I could say. So Javier does not seem to have sound to us, and his video is not yet connected.
okay.
But there he is.
Yeah.
Hola.
Usually he has problems because he'll use up his what do you go? Hey, there you go. That's a pretty ugly picture, but that's okay.
Yeah, Hey, how are y'all doing? It's good to meet you. I'm David.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, my service goes in and out. I'm actually in the desert at the moment. But I'll do my best. Thank you for inviting me.
So I hope others will continue to join us, but go ahead, Padre, and overview, and we'll get going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I like to do in these kind of informal interview types or Zoom calls is just try to answer the questions that you might have. And when you come down here, when I would bring groups of people down here, like you did last year, things change. I mean, I have to go every day and tell you what's the latest, because what I'm telling you today, next week could be outdated. And we all know with the craziness that's going on in the White House and the government right now, I mean, are we having tariffs? Are we not having tariffs? Are we going to cut this job out? Are we going to cut that job out? All of that kind of stuff. Well, that's all the craziness that people that we deal with down here, the migrants that we're dealing with, have to, navigate. So right now, I mean, probably the biggest thing is that the government is still, the immigration is still deporting through Nogales, port of entry, through Nogales into Mexico, close to 300 people a day. They have been for the past week or so. But none of those people are coming to us, because an agreement between the Trump administration and Mexico is that Mexico will pick them up. There's a bus that picks them right up at the border. So they get off the bus from immigration, cross the border into Mexico, and Mexican immigration puts them directly onto another bus that takes them south of Nogales, south border of the city, right on the outskirts of the city, in a big tent. I would say, it's like those things that you use for disaster relief tents. So it's a huge tent out there that has got like 300 beds. They can shelter them in there. So it's a shelter in that sense of for them sleeping. They got meals, they've got first aid, but they don't let them stay there. What they want to do in the whole process is they have to get them away from the border. So if you got deported today, a Mexican citizen, and realizing that not all of them would have been people that were seeking asylum. That we want to know those people. We can't get access to them right now. The Mexican government let us have access, because if they came up and they had an asylum, like I just got a memo today from our advocacy person, and she lists all the different people that we've dealt with this week who have been deported. And the thing is, they were asking for asylum because they can't go back to where they're from, in Guerrero and Oaxaca and Chiapas, places where there was a lot of gang violence, a lot of reasons why they left. And so now the Mexican government's saying, oh, no, you can go back there, because it doesn't want to admit that it's a failed state. So this is what we're trying to deal with. That's the issue right now. That's, the most pressing. We don't have a lot of people in our shelter. In this sense, a lot. I'm talking 3 or 4 people last night, because again, the Mexican government is not allowing them to contact us. They don't want them to stay in Nogales, in other words. So that's the latest, the most urgent news on our schedule here. If you're interested in any of that kind of stuff I just said, I'm putting a link down at the bottom of our staff member who publishes these every couple of weeks, every month. So her name's Karen Hernandez, and if you can see that, she's new to our staff in the sense that she's not on our webpage yet, but she's been handling all the work with the advocacy and keeping. Primarily, what we're trying to do is document this. So she's going to be the one that's doing the interviews, documenting it, and making sure that information gets to senators and Congress people and stuff like that, so that we know that this is the human face of this the deportation process that we're in right now, and these are the individual cases that they're not going to make the news, they're not going to make those kind of stories, but if we can get enough stories together, we can present a case that's what we want to do when we're trying to put that human face on the deportation system. So with that, I'd just like to say, questions that you all have, things that you would.
Greetings, Laurel.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm late.
Very good.
I guess Jack has fallen off the end of the earth, but now he's back.
In my excitement, when Laurel came on, I hit the wrong button and jumped off. Sorry.
Well, yeah.
Okay, we got a chat here from Kevin.
Yeah.
Is Mexico taking only its own nationals or others as well? Right now, as far as we can tell, they're only taking Mexican nationals. I just asked yesterday we have one of the guys on our staff used to work for the Mexican government, used to be work in the consulate corps in the United States, and he had been able to pull some strings to get on to get down there because we had heard they've been taking other people. I know 2 weeks ago before Easter, they had brought Guatemalans down. And what they would do is they come into Nogales. They go to this like I said, I want to call it a detention center, but it's a emergency shelter south of Nogales, and they're putting the Guatemalans, they're driving them in a bus down to Hermosillo, and then flying from Hermosillo down to southern Mexico, and then putting them on a bus to go to the border with Guatemala. We haven't seen them coming through through Nogales. That doesn't mean that they're not going through El Paso or Brownsville or someplace else, and Mexico's accepting. They did accept these. It's not like if you've been following what's happening in Panama, they're sending a lot more nationals, other nations to Panama than they are here, and landing them in Panama. So it's getting more complicated as we go. But right now in the Nogales area, to answer Kevin's question, we haven't seen anything but Mexicans.
Others who may have a question or comment for Father, you can just unmute yourself and jump in.
I'll throw something in the meantime. From the larger humanitarian perspective, we're witnessing a moment, not only in the United States, but elsewhere in the world, of great difficulty in terms of how people are treating each other. How do we reconcile ourselves with this moment? And what advice do you have as we look forward to other days that perhaps would be more peaceful, where we have greater acceptance?
Well, that's a heavy philosophical question at this point.
Okay, if it is too much, then yeah.
Well, no, I mean, one of the things I want to emphasize, and because what we're doing here is it's a work of the church. It's very, very explicitly, and we, with Pope Francis, it was very much part of his priorities. If you come down here for an orientation, one of the first things I do is say, how do we know that this is such a big priority? Well, the first thing he did as Pope, 12 years ago, was go to Lampedusa, the island in the Mediterranean, where 500 people capsized in a boat and lost their lives. And it just was something you got to think about in those days. I mean, he coming from Argentina, from Latin America, was not aware of the crisis in Europe. He was that wasn't on his radar. Just like so much of, if I'm not involved in it, it's not going to be there. It's not going to be something that brings me. Well, he saw that. He was not even 2 weeks since he was made Pope that he saw this newspaper, coming across his desk about these immigrants that died in the Mediterranean, drowned. And his thing was, I've got to do something about that. The church has got to be present. We got to go there. That's the way he is, And so, of course, he couldn't just get on a plane and go down there. He's not a private citizen. He's a head of a government. And he couldn't go into Italy without telling the president of Italy that, this is, so it was a very complicated thing that he was able to do, but he cut through that and went down there and just called the attention to everybody, because that was his first official act as Pope, first official state visit. It wasn't a state visit, obviously, but I mean, to go out of his country and go and do that, it called a lot of attention to where his priority is going to be. And now, if you're in the United States, of course, when you think about church, the church in the United States is, Catholic Church at least, is so divided and so caught up in these little minuscula. Besides, the major issue would have been the whole abortion issue, and anything to do with gays or lesbians or any of that kind of stuff. And everybody gets focused. That's where the media goes. But that's not his priority. And his priority was always the environment, immigration, poverty, those are the major things that we're supposed to be involved in. So what we're doing here with Kino is really trying to fulfill that, desire. So to answer your question, I think what I would say to folks, and it's something I just started picking up myself about 2 years ago, was the whole idea of hope. And, because what I find out in myself in this kind of work, I was coming into being, finding myself more and more cynical, sarcastic, pessimistic, very critical, and saying, well, that's not helpful. I mean, I can do that on any YouTube channel right now in the country. You can hear all of these talking heads and everybody just, well, where's the hope? And when I think about the work that you do here, hands-on work, these folks come up here with hope, with a real hope in the future. They don't see this as the end of everything, even though they're talk to somebody that just recently deported. Obviously, they're going to be depressed, angry, frustrated, all their dreams going down, but they don't give up hope. And so I think for us, that's the key messages out there. Francis called this whole year a year of hope. And with all the stuff happening, I mean, every time I open the newspaper, open the internet, look at the news, there's something more depressing than the day before. So how do you maintain in this? And I think that's where we need to have more and more contact with people. And I think that the physical contact is important, because if any of you had the chance to go to any of these demonstrations, I was up in Phoenix for the big one a couple of weeks ago, and just being around folks, there was just energy there. That just being around folks that are saying, we're all frustrated with this too. We don't see that we can do anything politically. We got to channel that in some other way. But at least our physical presence could be there, saying, I don't agree with what our government's doing. And it kind of reminds me and brings me back to what we were talking earlier about the whole thing in El Salvador. I mean, being able to end that war in El Salvador, nobody thought that was going to be possible, But I mean, after the Jesuits were killed down there, we were able to organize in Congress, get enough senators and congressional people involved, that we really were able to do stuff. And we brought about, at least a temporary truce. I don't know if El Salvador right now is any better than it was back then, but, so that would be a short answer.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Yeah. Karen, you need to unmute. You still are muted, Karen.
Sorry.
There you go. There you go.
I have a crazy dog here that I was trying to keep out of the conversation. Other than trying to document numbers, are you able to get information about the status of the people that are being sent to these tent cities?
The status in their legal status?
Yeah. In terms of whether they're asylum seekers or whether they're just people who came into the United States without papers and were discovered.
If we can get contact with them, yes. That's all. Those are all the questions we do on our intakes. That's very important. Some of that you will see if you get a hold of Karen. She'll be able to talk to you about that, because we do have an intake, confidential intake forms. So no names, but we'll give you the data of, say, the 100 people we interviewed yesterday, 50 of them had been in the States for a number of years, and we'll tell you how many years. They've been in the States for a year, they've been in the States for 20 years, and they're being picked up. So if you remember, when we started Kino, it was started, in 2000, what was it, 2008. From 2000 to 2008, the United States have been picking up people because of the 1997 NACRA law. They had been picking up people who had been in the States for 20 years, who were permanent residents, and deporting them. So that's still there, and so this is a very important data to have. So we do have some people. That's why I said the families that had been with us before they got asylum, they came across, they went to their hearing, and at their asylum hearing, they were picked up and deported. So if you lose your hearing, then you're going to be sent right back. And so people now are saying, well, I'm not even going to go to my hearing. I'm not even going to show up because I don't want to be deported right away. So that would be another what do you call it? Area of information. We just don't go. That's what's frustrating about what we're doing right now. We can't get in there. They won't legally let us in, nor will they let folks who get out of there come to us. So we're only getting a few. If we say we get 50 people yesterday for who come in and use our services, but they don't stay overnight. They're on the transit. They're on their way back, or they've got someplace else to stay in Nogales with family or whatever. But they still use our services. Yeah.
Thank you.
In the beginning of all of this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the beginning of all of this, we got the impression that Mexico was going to welcome back the people who had come to the United States and were now returning to Mexico, and create very advantageous situations for them in terms of documentation, in terms of jobs, in terms of further education. I mean, they're going to get a huge number of English speakers. So that will be very, very beneficial to their tourist industry, for example, and things like that. Is that actually happening? Or is Mexico just a conduit?
Well, that's what we're trying to document. See,
Yeah.
This is what they say, and we're saying that's not what we're seeing. So they said that in the publicity. You're right, exactly right. And they said that this tent out there, this migrant center that they set up, was going to have lawyers and job opportunities and training and computers and all this kind of stuff. And they were really going to try to reintegrate them into Mexico. And that's not what we're seeing. So, and again, if you don't let us in to see, or you don't let us talk to the people, how can we tell you that's what's happening? I'm just going to say our people who are down there, over there at the center, they're saying we haven't seen any of those things, none of those promises. Now, Kino's doing it. Yes, we have actually got a couple of programs up and running that we've been doing fundraising for, specifically for that, because we have another thing that if you're deported, but your family still, for example, in Phoenix or Tucson, you don't want to go back to Oaxaca. You don't want it's going to be forever. You want to stay up here close because your family's citizens, they can come and visit you in Mexico. So we're trying to set up programs there where we can, facilitate that, almost like having a welcome house. So if you want to visit with your family, they can come down. They don't have money, but they can come down and they can come to our place, and they can, we have like little cottages. This is the long-term plan. Right now, we just have a big center that, they can come down and get in and stay like over the weekend or whatever, have a visit with mom or, that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, those are little things, but, and then we do have, for guys who are here, who want to stay here, we have got contracts with different people who are going to help us set up work, things like that. So we have a job training program. We've got one of our board members who owns a produce company. He's got these guys, migrants who've been deported, to come down, and he's given them entry-level jobs. Just, give them something so that they can build up some kind of record. A lot of Mexicans who get deported after being in the States don't have any papers to prove that they can work in Mexico, So that's the other thing.
Others?
I have another question. When the dust settles, we all know that a certain number of laborers are going to have to be let back into the United States under some kind of a farm worker or whatever alternative visa. They're going to have to do it because otherwise they can't keep open the golf courses and the restaurants and anything here. And so it seems to me that I'm wondering what if you've heard anything about the climate among the migrants themselves about, look, the dust is going to settle. They're going to realize they have to have us here. I mean, I have a friend who has a restaurant in Palm Springs. He said, basically, we can't function without it, without these men working and these women working. A little restaurant just around the corner here, a very wonderful woman found everybody jobs when immigration came. In other restaurants behind the scenes so that they wouldn't be found. People are hiding people in the United States, which, trying to keep them away while the dust settles until these work visas come through. Is that just a pipe dream?
No, I mean, I think it's the reality. I mean, we're finding this all over the place. That the answer is not this xenophobia that we've got, but that's the thing that feeds the fires, that feeds the politics of it. This is bad for business. I mean, talk to any of your friends that are overseas. They're all going to say, wait, is this a free country? These United States, you freely voted? What collective country votes against their own self-interest? Well, we're seeing it right now. You're seeing all the stuff with all the people are losing jobs. I mean, factories are closing. Lost your 401, whatever it is, your, retirement funds and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I have a question. Hi, Pete.
Yeah.
I got here late because I couldn't get on and couldn't figure out how to do it. But
Okay.
and so I'm sorry I missed most of your presentation. I keep thinking in a totalitarian state, the dictators can only pull things off if the police and the military do what they say. So ICE is already apparently co-opted by the dictator. But do you see any resistance with ICE?
Well, again, I'll tell you that was in our latest report that it came out yesterday from Karen, our advocacy person. We're not seeing, border patrol abuses so much, but seeing a lot of ICE abuses. A lot of ICE that's acting as if it is the brown shirts, So yeah, when you talk about, totalitarian things, these guys are really, they're just doing, and they're getting away with it because there's no voice against them, So we're trying to get stuff together and organize ourselves to, somebody wrote in one of the on the side here about legislative stuff and people that were going to be friendly to us. That's what we're trying to put together. We just lost a great champion of migrants down here in Arizona with the death of Raul Grijalva, 2 weeks ago. That was a real blow to us. We don't have anybody else really that we're working on, but it's part of it's part of a much bigger.
Well, one of the techniques is you empower the bullies if you want to take over a country, and the ICE seem to be the bullies. Raul Grijalva's daughter is running for that seat.
Right. We'll see. She's got some tough competition, though.
But I would assume that if she's wanting to carry on her father's legacy, she would be an ally. I don't know how much she is already.
Yeah, no, she has not been. I mean, she's very much involved with what do you call it? The farm labor movement. So he was really big because that's part of his district. A lot of working with the Cesar Chavez, that farm workers union, also with Native Americans, a very big advocate, and voice for that, and for the national parks and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Other comments? One of the things that I was keen to know, and it connects to an earlier conversation we had a couple of months ago with a Washington D.C. attorney and Harvey, you may have a sense of this too. Where are the Jesuits on this within the U.S.? This being the current administration's approaches.
Well, there are two places that you'll be able to see the statements that have been made by the various Jesuit provinces. There are 4 of them in the United States. But the Jesuit Refugee Service, it's an international organization, obviously, with headquarters in Rome, and it primarily works with in Sudan and Myanmar and Palestine and stuff. But they do have offices and works in southern Mexico, working with internal migrations. They have made pretty strong statements and tried to, and primarily because of the cuts to AID, because that has cut funding to a lot of these major programs. And so they have used their leverage there to, they're in Washington, D.C., so they do have a whole advocacy, and you can get on their mailing lists or whatever they call them today, to be connected to them. So you really know, like up-to-date stuff. So they've made some pretty, as far as Jesuits go. And then individuals, of course, there's organizations on the border, Jesuits are actually working in migration. That's their main ministry. There's Jesuits working in ministries in New York, of course, New York and Chicago, Seattle, those kind of places that are doing it. And what we're trying to do is organize getting the universities involved. Now, the universities, of course, have their own agenda, and especially with what's happening with Harvard and all that, universities are getting a little gun-shy. But I will say the hierarchy in the Catholic Church, so what do you call it? The Bishops' Conference has not really, done, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just got a message here from Javier that says, he's down in Puebla and he's a current, Peace Corps volunteer, but he would just say he can give you a little hint on what's down there. Because I talk to him pretty regularly, and I asked him about what's going on with people being repatriated. So if you're from the East Coast, Puebla, York, they call it, because so many New Yorkers are there. He can kind of fill you in if you want to, Xavier, if you want to just say a few words about that might be up to date.
Sure, I'll touch on that real quick. So for those who weren't on the call earlier, okay, my name's Xavier Javier. I'm Peace Corps agent or Peace Corps agent, Peace Corps member. I don't know how you say that.
Volunteer.
But down here in Puebla.
Yeah.
Volunteer, that's the right.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was writing stuff about Border Patrol agents, so I just
there are 4
yes,
Peace Corps volunteers on this call.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, great. But great to meet y'all. It's volunteers. And what countries were y'all?
Brazil in all cases.
Oh,
Northeastern Brazil.
How cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sorry, I make this short so we can get on to interviewing Father Pete more. But here in Puebla, I'm in southern Puebla, so near the border of Oaxaca, and it's a desert zone. And we are starting to see more people get deported. And a lot of this region is very, very dependent on migration. So most of their income, I think in the town that I'm in, it's about 3,000 people, and 70% of their income is based on remittances. And pretty much everyone is in New York doing construction or cooking jobs, stuff like that. And so people are getting pretty worried that they're going to stop seeing that money flow in, especially because that's, their primary source of income. Before there was a lot of agriculture, corn, beans, kind of typical, Mexican crops. But then with climate change came in, there's been successive droughts, and there's really no more water. So they kind of had to figure out different ways to work. And the solution was to migrate, temporarily at least.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of the population is over there, and we're seeing some of them start to come back now.
Questions for Javier?
Well, is there a possibility of getting water from somewhere?
Yeah, it's not like there's no water at all. It's just much, much more difficult to have subsistence agriculture or agriculture that's economically viable, I suppose. So people still have wells. There's a lot of subterranean water, but little by little, it's kind of running. And my work here in Peace Corps is setting up water capture systems. We do like rooftop water capture systems where we get a lot of the rainwater. Because there is a rainy season, it's like 2 or 3 months. It's kind of like Arizona, where we get sort of a monsoon season, and it rains decent for a good 3 months. We set water capture systems and we capture as much as we can in that time. The thing is that like long term for agriculture, for them to still live off of their agriculture, or also, build a house or pay their bills, stuff like that. It's like no longer super viable with the amount of water that they get.
Yeah, thanks, Javi.
So other comments?
Javier, have you seen any assistance coming in from the government, like Salubridad or anything, to help the recently returned migrants?
Or as part of the Mexican government specifically?
Yes.
Not as of yet. There's a lot of, to be fair, people generally kind of just come back and they reincorporate with their families and figure out work. So it's not the condition that we have at the border in Nogales, for example, where they're homeless, they have no roots, they have no ties. So here it's a little less dire. It means that they don't have an income, right? And little by little, they kind of run out of economic resources. There's a lot of narratives. There's a lot of support for migrants, at least in like people's discourse, in the rhetoric. And the politicians are very supportive of the migrants. And there's usually some sort of acknowledgement at most public events of the migrants. But in terms of like actual government programs that are supporting them, none as of yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. And switching back to you, Father, what sorts of things does KBI need support for these days? And is it basically monetary, or are there other kinds of support that you all are seeking?
Well, I think what we've been emphasizing with all the groups that are coming down here is that we've got to do the legislative stuff. We've got to get people in Washington to know that this is happening, because I think it goes back to my old days when we first started with in the early 2000s with the deportation of permanent residents. I would write to congressmen and to senators and stuff like that about the situation, individuals that I know. Okay. I mean, you got like Nancy Pelosi or Don Feinstein. These ladies all went to school with my aunt or my up, and they would tell me, Father, we're all on your case. Oh, the senator really wants to support what you're doing, Father. Yeah, but Father, for every call you make, there's 10 against you. You need to organize it and this has been going on since I've been down here. I've been trying to emphasize every student that comes down, every group that comes down. I said, who's your senator? Who's your Congress? Write them a note. I've got a campaign going right now. Look, my sister, I was trying to get her on this call, but she's actually doing a pilgrimage with one of her daughters over in Ireland today. Yeah. So you have to write, what do you call it? And she's doing handwritten notes. That's what she's got. That somebody gave her that thing that goes back years of, when we used to do lobbying years ago, that, there's a gradated point thing for every senator's office, whatever. So a handwritten note is 5, a telephone call is 2, an email message, a postcard that, I give 100 postcards. Everybody that comes to Kino gets a postcard. Send this in, say, we want this specific bill. Well, they take those things and I think they just end up in a circular file, if you remember those days. Yeah. So I think that would be Jack, that's to answer your question. The monetary stuff, thank God. God has blessed us with enough stuff to get us through now because we don't have all the thousands of people that we were serving. We used to serve 300 meals a day. We're serving 30. So, I mean, that immediate stuff it's not the main need. We need, primarily, we're trying to get pro bono lawyers to take some of these cases because some of the people that are staying with us or, using our services, they're waiting to see whether or not they have something that, their daughter's still in the States. Does she qualify to get them to, to come back in to apply for another, visa, whatever. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Just a friendly amendment to that question. Is there staff dedicated to this messaging program of outreach?
Yeah, that's the one that I sent you. That's Karen.
Oh, earlier? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I sent that earlier. That. She's the direct person in
Karen
charge.
Hernandez, yeah.
Karen Hernandez. And, and if you go to our website, you'll see there's a director, Pedro Velasquez, is the director of advocacy, education, and advocacy. He's kind of he's the right hand for our executive director. So you can even go to him also and just say, hey, I was on this call. This is interesting. We'd like to see whether or not we can formalize, maybe the Amigos, former Peace Corps folks can get involved, because that's a great, what do you call it? A great group of people that's actually, sensitive to this issue. And like I say, we do need to organize better. The anti-immigrant groups, the build the wall people, I mean, they are so united and so loud. They make all kinds of noise. And the people that, like I think of the 25 organizations that work with migrants on the border of Mexico and Arizona, and they are so disparate. We just haven't been able to get a unified voice on anything. It's, cada quien por su lado, everybody just wants to, I got my program. And so Kino, we've been able to collaborate. That's one of our goals for our mission statement is to collaborate more with local groups on both sides of the border. And so we intentionally try to do that.
This is Laurel. I spent the fall working in Montana on the John Tester campaign. And the biggest issue in Montana was immigration.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. I mean, I would really be venting going like, they're on the freaking Canadian border. Are they worried the Canadians are going to, why? And I just think that the whole environment is so poisoned by the news that people watch in red state that the entire conversation has become completely unmoored from anything rational or reality. I don't necessarily have solutions for that. So, the left-leaning organizations need to take over media companies. I don't know how to do it, but I will say that it was really shocking. I had a veteran, a retired colonel or something, say to me, John Tester has been wonderful on veterans issues. I love him for that. I voted for him for years. But right now, the border is the most important thing. And that's more important than my own self-interest as a veteran. And so, yeah, I know. So I'm just sort of validating the challenge.
Yeah. No, I mean, very much aware of that. And that's why I keep going back to the whole idea of, having hope. How does one maintain hope in a situation you just described? I mean, if anything just screams of hopelessness. I mean, again, our generation, the people on this call, most of us, our Vietnam is still a reality. Okay. This is not something, I mean, I had classmates of mine that went over there, came back in a basket, you know, literally and figuratively, mentally, emotionally. And I can't understand how they could vote for this man. I mean, everything that we were supposed to be fighting for in Vietnam, he's put into case. Every time I cross these checkpoints, you remember? I mean, you know, back in the 60s, it was, we don't want to, you know, those communists are going to take over. They're going to demand ID cards, you know, in the Soviet Union, you just can't move from one place to another. And they're going to demand, and I have to do it every day. I said, come on, guys, is our memory, historical memory, so short that this is the kind of stuff that these guys gave their lives for? And you're coming up and going, you know, right in the front of them. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you're going to push my buttons if you go that way. And I mean, I know Francis would answer that veteran up in Montana with a little bit more calm and peace than I could do, you know, because I just, we can't give up hope. You just got to keep going. And there's got to be enough. I do work with enough young people here, thank God. You know, I mean, and Xavier, the same thing. When he came down here, you know, I mean, his family lives on the border also, you know, and that's something that we have to deal with. There's people in the community out there in Arivaca where you guys went to mass, you know, and yet, you know, you got to humanize that and say, you know, let's say we can disagree, but we don't have to kill each other, you know, or we don't have to make these people are really suffering. Is that your intention? You know,
Yes.
Because right now they're saying they deserve to suffer. We didn't do it. It's not our problem. Let Mexico take care of Mexicans. You know, we got to take care of America. Well, and then the idea that we're living in the isolationism. I mean, historically, what I've been really plugging is that Ken Burns documentary on the United States and the Holocaust. Ken Burns did a thing a couple of years ago now on the U.S. role, and it's a 6-hour documentary. It was on PBS, and it is so parallels everything that we're doing today. I mean, literally the newsreels from Goebbels and from Goebbels and all those guys, Himmler, all those newsreels where they're giving talks, you can just take their picture out and put Stephen Miller's picture in there, and they're identical. There's nothing new here. This is the exact same game plan. So, and you think, well, how did that happen? I mean, the German people said the same thing. We don't even talk about the German people. We talk about Nazis. So I don't talk about Americans anymore. I talk about MAGA. And if your definition of what it means to be American is MAGA, that's the same as saying a German is a Nazi. For me, that's the way I'm seeing things right now. And we're going to be divided as a country. Then you're going to see the church make a big stand, because everything that Trump stands for in his State of the Union address is categorically opposed to what Francis just said in his Ad Orbi et Orbi, which is basically the state of the world. And everything that he says, they just contradict. So I think we're going back, go back and read the, you know, Yale Review from 1843, where it talks about don't let the Jesuits into the United States, because you know that they are going to brainwash you all into being, they can't be good Americans. And so I'm going to say right on, we cannot be good Americans if American is a MAGA, you know, that is just, I mean, I'll go to the mat on that one. So we try to do what we can down here. You know, you cannot go along with it. You cannot just say business as usual. We've got to say we can change this and do what we can. So that's my soapbox.
One of the things I wonder with these arguments is so many other countries have more refugees than we do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But Americans
look at Jordan. There's 1 million of them compared to what's happening here. I mean, yes. Yeah.
So I think compiling some of those numbers might be useful to let people know, no, there is a worldwide crisis in the environment and in wars and in humanity.
I'll go in the corner. Mom in the kitchen.
Hello?
And I'm always sitting in the corner, so I can't have any cheese.
Looks like it's on Harvey's.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that could be the conclusion.
I just muted him.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
That could be the concluding remarks, Father. Other comments or questions from other people whom we've heard from or whom we haven't heard from? Please jump in.
I just want to say quickly, there are a couple of steps getting this up. We have our own YouTube channel. I have to process that, and then I will distribute via email. We have Father's email address. I just picked up Xavier's in the chat. Laurel, you're in touch via Jack, so that we can take advantage of all of this information, including Laurel's wonderful offer to help with grant seeking. That also came out in the chat. Not everyone here is versed in chat, so I've been copying that down, and we'll also distribute it to make sure that it gets to everyone. So really grateful.
Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah. So, and I apologize that to some people who aren't even here, that we had some technical difficulties in getting the right communication string out there. Lesson learned, it will not happen again. And I hope Father forgives us. That's what fathers do, right?
3 Hail Marys.
Can come back. Yeah.
Oh, I thank you, both you and Jack, for putting this together, because there is a lot of hope in a little group of people like this spread out all over the country.
Right.
Yeah. And I was thinking, Laurel, I forgot when you said Montana, I said, well, wait a minute, I thought you lived in San Miguel, and then my sister lives in Guanajuato. She has a house in Long Beach, but she's also half the year she's in Guanajuato. And so she's working with the local, one of my friends he used to be the head of Secretary for Immigration for the state of Guanajuato. So he had his offices in San Miguel, and when I would go down and visit. So we've got a lot of connections here, and I'm working with my Mexican counterparts, because somebody mentioned the fact that Mexico's going along with this now. The previous administration wasn't, but I think that this tariff, blackmailing that's going on is forcing, the independence of these countries just basically to give it up and say it's not worth it. So, and that's sad, that's really sad, but we'll be in touch. So Laura, I have your number, you got my number, and email. Perfect. Great. So.
Well, thank you all very much. Mickey Moore, Ellen Colville was on for a while and had some previous engagements, so dropped off, and really appreciate everyone else who made it to the end here. So thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, guys. Okay, we'll do this again. Maybe try again next year.
Thank you.
Everybody has my number. You got all where I'm at. So yeah,
we do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Javier, for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Yeah.